Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Dan.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you might know that we're sitting in different chairs. So
That's true.
there's that.
Noticing all the
Yeah.
details of our podcast that you pay
That's
so much attention to.
mindfulness, being in the present. I'm
Yeah.
aware of these
Oh, good.
new
How the
chairs we're sitting.
texture of the chair feels on my
Yeah,
fingers.
and they're pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
great.
if you are listening, pretty good parents, then thank you, because that means you're invested to be a pretty good parent. So we really appreciate that.
Love it.
Uh, Last week we talked about bullying a little bit. If
Yeah.
you missed that, have any,
If you're getting bullied,
yeah, go check that episode.
how to
Mhm.
talk to your boss and go report.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
yeah,
No, taking a stand, but taking a stand means like you're exhausting all reasonable options leading up to, whatever needs to happen. But it's empowering your kid to not be a victim, and teaching that over time versus it being subbed out to like just teachers and administrators and other parents who can definitely be involved. But we want our kids to feel like they got control of their lives and they can stand up.
yeah. Well, and it was great. Go check it out. Yeah, if you have any kind of questions on bullying, and today, I believe we're talking about how to build positive,
Ooh,
healthy
you
family
love it.
routines.
Dan loves
This is
it.
my happy place, everybody. I love me a good process, a good routine.
Get the chart.
So does my family.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, so you want to break it down, Joshua?
Yeah. So I think most of our topics should have this same kind of preemptive belief, and that is every family needs to do what works for them. Um, this is not a one size fits all. I will say, embedded in most of our uh, podcasts or teachings is going to be healthy relationships. I don't think that's necessarily everyone gets to do that differently. Like that is kind of a one size fits all, but there's lots of ways people like prioritize that or carry that out or
Mhm.
express that. So how you manage your routine and structure as a family should absolutely be built around your family, but just how many different things can take over our time in a given week and how fast life goes. It's just a really good idea to be conscious of what are you prioritizing? Is it your value system played out in your structure? Because if not, who knows what you're really modeling and teaching to your kids, and who knows what the world's is louder at teaching to your kids if you don't have a routine or a structure in your home.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the what. It's important because it can build lifelong habits. It can ease anxiety about for those in the family that need to know what's next or know what to plan on. It gives them a little bit of a schedule or structure to follow. And then for those that need more structure because they would just roam around and do nothing, it's obviously good for them too to how to get stuff done. So this the goal is for this to fit for all personality types, and that's where there's going to be compromise.
Hmm.
We'll get into like more of the how of like how strictly you enforce it or how you talk about it because it's going to need to work for the most diligent type A, and it's also going to need to work for the slacker floater person or people in the family if it's going to work well. So there needs to be this middle ground. It needs to be consistent, but it also has to be flexible enough, which pushes in on some people's rigidity. But we can talk more about that. But
Yeah.
that's the why. There's a lot that happens in a week, and whether you know it or not, you're building habits. We always are, whether we're our thinking habits or our self care habits or our study or work habits. We're building something, obviously. Like we get to this place of our thinking all by itself, and like, well, you've built this habit, just didn't do it consciously. It's a great chance to teach our kids how to consciously build habits that serve them well in the areas that matter most.
Yeah. Well, I personally probably get anxiety when I don't know what that next week looks like, for the kids, or if I know that they don't know. Uh, to me, it just goes into chaos, and not that
Yeah.
everything has to be perfect, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of it.
Well,
So
it's just hearing you say that's a great example of the difference of personality types. I actually feel more anxiety ruminating on the plan than I do just showing up and dealing with the week or the plan.
mm,
Like sometimes the huge disclaimer, I have a wife who's very responsible and very diligent at the calendar and all the kids' stuff. So I get to play kind of the dumb dad who doesn't know anything that's going on till Monday. I'm like, what's the calendar
Oh,
look
what am I
like?
supposed to do
Oh, there's
today?
a soccer game. Oh, we'll see if I can make it. Where Bree's usually weeks or vacation time, it's like months out in terms of scheduling, right? So that's why I was saying it needs to work for the whole family. I get to be more the way I want to be and kind of the slacker because she is more diligent and organized. If she
Mhm.
weren't like that, I would probably take more of assertive role because I don't want to be. I don't want the family to have no rudder and no direction, but it already does given our team dynamic. And I don't really want to think about that stuff. And so I like to float.
Yeah.
So it's what matters most is the team does it well together and you kind of know where you land in that structure.
Yeah. So breaking down how a family would go about creating a good structure, what would be the first step?
Yeah. Uh, the most important part of this is that you identify what your top values are as a family,
Hmm.
because that's what your structure is either building or supporting or reinforcing. If you don't do that, you end up building structure around values that you might not think long term actually mattered that much.
Yeah. And this is cool because I feel like there's so much out there on goal setting, atomic habits, all this stuff. But I feel like it's really around personal. I don't feel like it's talked
Yeah.
about a lot as a family. Like, let's sit down and as a family, what goals do we have? How do we want to interact? How do we want to, what are our values? What principles do we want to have?
Yeah.
It's more like, oh, I want to lose 5 pounds this year.
Yes.
Like very
You're right.
stuff
There
like
aren't
that, right?
like, I don't even know any books that are like atomic family habits,
Right.
because it's a harder thing to capture. But it's not impossible. It's sit down and with your partner or with your whole family, maybe partner first before you pull the kids into it, and then like, what are our top values? So examples, and there's no limit to how many values there are you can have, but sleep, diet, exercise, quality family time, social life, academics, sports, work ethic, service to community and others,
What
taking
about
care of your property.
I was going to say clean house, clean kitchen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
chores, like to have a clean house could be a top value. But you want to, it's really important that you solidify these and believe in these and say, yes, these are our top 3 or our top 5 and shake on it, because it's going to be important. And when you're enforcing it, you need to believe in it versus why the hell are we even doing this? Like, no one cares about this. Why is this in our structure? Why is this in our week?
Yeah.
You want to be able to say, because we believe in that thing. Like, that's important to us. That's why we do it. That's why it's hard, but it's worth doing well. Like, you want to get that buy-in. You can't get that buy-in if it really doesn't represent the family's values. So I would spend more time and be more clear on what you value as a family than just desperately like structuring the week. Like, quick side note, almost every family I work with, and certainly most parents, their biggest complaint is they're too busy. And then they complain that they end up doing things that aren't high on their value list,
Mhm.
which is good news in that, like, oh well, great news, that's your fault. That's not the world making you do that. Like, you guys are saying yes to these things. This gives them a better filter to make those decisions. Like, are we going to commit to these things? Well, where do they fit on our priority or our values list? Not very high. Oh, okay, well, we can't do that. Wow, but it's so good. I know, but it's number 4 on the list and we're not doing number 2. Number 2 always beats number 4. Number 1
Mhm.
always beats number 2, right? It's simple when you've kind of ranked them in terms, like in my coaching, I do values clarification exercises with business owners all the time to say, you need to know what you value most because you're going to run a business and your life around it. And the home should be the same. Like, you should know what you're valuing the most because you're instilling habits that are basic, that are maybe lifelong, and you want to make sure they're good ones. Being busy and overwhelmed is potentially just ignorant.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean everyone's unhealthy or can't have fun or whatever. But, oh, we're just so busy. I feel like we can't do the things that we really need to do. Well, that's on you, which is an empowering message, actually. It's not a blaming thing. It's like, oh, great. You don't need anyone's cooperation. You just have to get back to deciding what matters most. Plan that first and let the other stuff come in around it. Stephen Covey would call it like rocks in the jar. Put the big rocks in first
Mhm.
that matters most to you, and then let the other stuff fill in around it. But most families I work with, they feel like the sand gets poured into that jar before they even grab the rock.
Yeah.
and there's like no room, and then they're like trying to shove the rock in the jar. There's no room for their top values, but that's a failure on our part. If we could just sit there and say, what do we value most, even if it's starting in 2 months, if the calendar's open, then say no to a few things, make some more space to the things that matter most, like downtime or connecting as a family or rest. It depends on what people value. So
Well, and I found too that it's so important to have the why when you're having that conversation of why those are your values and why are they important, right? So, for example, you tell kids, "All right, we're gonna value sleep." Well, why? I was like,
yeah,
"Well, like I don't want to go to bed at 8 o'clock, right, or whatever." So, I think understanding that why and being able to draw back on that, I found like for our family goes a huge way, especially with the kids, right?
yeah,
It's like, well, why do you need rest? Because that is when you grow. Like there's a ton of studies that show sleep is the most valuable thing you can do for overall health and longevity and living longer.
absolutely,
Like right, there's just all these stats that you can show to back that up.
yeah,
But it's like, do you want to live that way, or do you want to live sleep deprived and run on empty and all that stuff, right?
yeah.
And so I think,
Y-
yeah,
Yeah, for any parents out there that have young kids or even babies, uh, determine right now what it looks like to have the best sleep hygiene for your family. And if there's one thing you're going to be a Nazi about, uh, most of the time, I know it's kind of ironic, uh, but it would be your sleep schedule. Like
yeah,
we were all in on uh, crying it out. And I could care less what the data or research showed if it argues against that. It worked for us so well.
right,
My wife is not good when she's sleep deprived, and having babies that cry all night is not cool. And it's horrible for the whole family, including the baby. And early on, I'm like, we are not doing this. And I'm going to put so and so in their crib. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to just make sure they're safe, but they're going to cry until they go to sleep. And I don't care how many nights it's going to take.
hmm
We did that with Isaiah. Our son was like, "Oh, you just need to learn to sleep. We're ready for you to be in bed in your crib." And, but he's like, "I can't handle it. If he's crying, I can't." I'm like, "Oh, I'll handle it." I went in there, laid on the ground for a few hours and wait till he went to sleep. And our kids are incredible sleepers. Like there is never an issue they could get him to go to bed. Like they like sleep. They sleep well. They're asleep uninterrupted. And that's a top value of ours because we're not good when we're deprived of
yeah,
sleep, right? For all the reasons you listed, like mental, emotional health, physical health, so much of it's based on that healthy sleep data that you're pulling from. And we went heavy on the sleep. Now, not heavy on it's 8 o'clock, go to sleep, but a get the right amount of hours, and it's gonna definitely be within this range. And the key is it can be more regimented the younger they are, and you build that habit of good sleep and good sleep hygiene, then there can be some flexibility as they get older. What exact time they go to doesn't matter as much. They value it and they get their good sleep when they go to sleep.
yeah.
But we went like to the point where uh, our daughter was getting out of her bed and out of her room. Have I shared this story with you?
No, I don't think so.
Uh, our daughter was safe, everybody. Everything's fine. But I turned that
How old?
doorknob.
How old was she?
I think she was 3 or 4 because we were worried about her waking up our son, who was finally sleeping. And walking around at night, her bedroom was right at the top of the stairs. And we're like, "Are you sleepwalking or what are you doing? You could fall down the stairs. This isn't safe." I turned the doorknob around, just locked her in there.
Yeah,
I'm like, "This isn't good for you. It's not good for us. You're fine. If you need something, holler. I'll come and I'll make sure you're okay. If you need to go to the bathroom, like I'll come in and let you out." And for the first few nights, it was, "Daddy, Daddy, no, I need to." And I'm like, "No, you're fine. You're fine."
yeah,
And it was hard for me. I wanted to like care for her and like hug her. But I want her to sleep more importantly than like wandering around night waking us up.
right.
And so for a few weeks, the door was locked. I would let her off. She had to go to the bathroom or whatever. It was for her safety. And then after a while, I didn't have to do it. I fake locked it. Like I just made it sound like I was turning the knob, right? Shook it a little bit,
hmm
and she wasn't locked in. But she was done getting up. Like that was it. because we value uninterrupted sleep so much, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
They're safe in their room. Like, uh, if she really needs something, like I'll hear her room wasn't far away and I'll let her out. But point being, like, I'm super carefree and flowy and all kinds of parenting things. Um, but this one was a top value of ours, and I'm like, well, this is worth doubling down on it.
Well, and I think that was kind of a good example of maybe getting into maybe the next step, which is sort of like building habits or how do you create these, right? Once you've identified your values. So you actually took physical precautions to sort of change those habits, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's such a good analogy because to me, um, well, first, I guess maybe before we go into habits, would you want to share some of your guys' overall family values like that? You guys, I guess, sort of the routine structure that you put around
Yeah,
your guys'
absolutely.
family,
Yeah. Um,
because we haven't done this yet for my family. We're all kind of so we have our individual ones,
yeah.
which I'm happy to share. But now I want to sit down and kind of do it as a family and like get buy-in and agreement.
Yeah. Well, so I'll explain that and then I'll explain how it's been implemented and how it's modeled because that's really important.
Yeah,
Um, exercise is a big deal. Overall, just like self care. So eating healthy enough. I
this
mean,
goes back to our old taking care of old numero
it
uno.
starts
Yeah.
with us, starts
Uh-huh.
with the you. Yeah, because if we're
Mhm.
not good, we're gonna have a hard time
Mhm.
parenting. Taking care of ourselves, getting good sleep is huge. Um, there's always a nature component. Whether I mean we live on 5 acres, so there's this engagement with nature, or it's a hike, or we want to make sure when we travel, like there's also this connection. So that's a big deal. Paying attention and savoring that. Um, we have chores built in, but they don't get a ton of attention. It's just like, hey, it's part of it. Like you need to do your thing. You know, we don't live with a bunch of animals to have like chores that start at 5 a.m. or something. But taking care of the chickens, taking care of your room, taking care of your property, uh, is a ongoing reminder. It's not a or else, you know, you're getting this taken away or you're gonna get yelled at. It's just like, hey, please do that. Quality time with family, the four of us, but then also extended family, quality time with friends. Travel's a big deal for us. Like that's a high value of like seeing other parts of the world and seeing other worldviews. There's a lot of exploration about that of when we do travel and then what we're learning and sharing that. Academics, it's like what we're learning educationally. Reading's a big deal. You know, books are everywhere in our house because we are always interested in learning new things. There are instruments in our house that get played sometimes, not often, because no one's cracking the whip about
Mhm.
playing the piano. But yeah, those are our family values, and they end up being implemented, modeled how much Brie and I prioritize that, and then the inevitable. We're going to go out for dinner on these nights. Mom's cooking dinner and we're doing family dinner on these times. We're going on this travel. Saturday's a family work day around the property, but we're not more regimented than that, which doesn't need to work for everybody else, but it does for us. I would fight against a rigid system. I could draw it up and believe in it, but then like the first day that it doesn't fit right with how I feel, I'm gonna not do it, and then it's like worthless.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense to just say we kind of flow, because if it doesn't, then I'm more likely to blow it up and not do it at all than like, oh, it didn't work out yesterday. All right, well, make sure tomorrow. Where some people like have to have that or they get off. I will likely to break it and screw it up if it's too tight and too rigid for me.
Yeah. I noticed you didn't have screen time in your family values.
Family values.
Yeah.
Uh, well, it's not a value that we prioritize. I feel like that's the sand in the metaphor.
Right.
It will flow in
Because it
for
will
sure.
just spill over real
Yeah.
quick.
But like for example, how that structure is managed. Bree's usually on top of that for our son, and how many Bree's my wife. Uh, how long has this kid been playing that video game? Like yesterday, it was we're on spring break, and it was just a Sunday of spring break, and our son was playing some game with his friend online, and I'm like, well, he hasn't been playing with his friend for a couple of days. I want him to have this social time. this is his best option. There is no social option for Sunday for to make him go do something else because of where we live. That I don't know how many hours he sat in there in that den and played games with his friend, laughing, collaborating, having a
Mhm.
great time. And then my wife would say, "All right, you're due for an hour of outside time or exercise. Like you need to be off of everything and go get on the Peloton or the treadmill or go trampoline or like you need to go do some stuff outside." Which he does s- minorly protest. You know, he's like, "Fine, I'll do it." There's no big threats, but that's about it. Like we are not. I wouldn't say we're a poster family for anything like that.
Yeah.
Uh, just to be honest, like, well, I don't think it's healthy for him, but he's happy. I don't know what else we're gonna do. His whole life's not defined by that. There is some balance. I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm not worried about what that does for his future. That doesn't mean I don't think anything bad can happen. It doesn't mean I wouldn't want something else. But uh, I just think like, a guy sleeps well. He smiles a lot. He's grateful. He's nice. He's smart. I'm not gonna worry about too many details.
Yeah. Well, and I think, to your point of you guys have already kind of laid out your values and you kind of know that, and Bree, kind of came in and said, "Hey, let's run outside or go do that." And you guys obviously model a ton of being active and going outside and doing some of those things,
Yeah, I
right?
would go
And
on for an hour
sleep
and a
and
half bike
all that's
ride.
working. So it's like, what's the yeah. No.
They see mom go do yoga, mom's on the Peloton, dad's gone for a bike ride. So and so just came back sweaty. And our daughter always wasn't always into that, but now that she's 14, almost 15, she sees mom and dad and sees the value of it and benefits it herself, how good it feels. And so she's adopted that. And
Mhm.
I'm hoping that over time, with some accountability, our son also values that. He's told me in the last few weeks that he wants to lift some weights.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's awesome, buddy. Let's go. Let's go to the garage or go to the gym. I would love for you to learn early, like how to take care of yourself. So yeah, I don't, we are not regimented with that. One, because it doesn't feel natural to my personality type and I would go against it. And there aren't red flags that would warrant it. So
Yeah.
it's a high value of mine, but I don't enforce it because I just don't see the reason yet.
So a quick question then, have you with the family kind of written these out and all got buy-in, or are these just more things that uh, you and Bree have talked about and you kind of live out and model?
I think that we've only done the latter. We've
Yeah,
only talked about it. We'll talk about over dinner or on a trip. It's modeled so much that it's not confusing what we value.
right.
But my personality type would rebel against a sit down meeting, sign here
Like a
that
written up on the wall. Here's your check.
the
You got to
Emery
put a check
family
mark
lives
every day.
by
Yeah.
this. And I could create stuff like that all the time and I could get excited about it. But practical, like reality would be I wouldn't follow it like week two.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh God, it's like, I don't need to do this today. I could do it later today or
Hmm.
tomorrow. I get it done. I just rebel against the have to, almost like, uh, almost idiotically. You're like,
Hmm.
why are you rebelling against that? I don't want to be boxed in. So if a family is more, I guess I don't know if you want to say type A, but more regimented and likes the more of that discipline, absolutely. Sit down. Everyone gets a vote. You get to kind of put your value in the mix and your examples of how to like prioritize that value, commit to it, sign up for it. There's no one way to do this. It just needs to be like representative of the family and the personality types and their values played out.
Hmm.
Ours, because I'm so anti uh rigidity, I would blow it up even if I created it. And so that's silly versus let's just make sure within a given week you're working out this much, you get this much stuff done, you are hanging out with the family, doing these things, and then I don't really care what day they occur. Other people, it like needs to be on a Tuesday, and Saturday is blocked off for this. It's totally fine. as long as that works for them and their family, that's what you need to be aware of for yourself.
Yeah.
So you have the tendency to want to like map it all out. But I guess my question is, are you likely to follow through with it in a reasonable clip and with the family as well?
So I would say the thing that we're struggling with. So I did this with. This is like a great example of you were saying that the different types of personalities, right? So I said, hey, let's all write our goals down. All right. Carly, my daughter, Libby, my wife, were like, "Screw you guys, we're out. You
They just left the
you boys
conversation.
can do this, okay?" So,
Lame
and
ups.
I was gonna try to like model it by saying, "Hey, I'm gonna get some papers out. We're gonna write down these are things I want to
Mm,
accomplish this year, and then we're gonna build the habits, like describe the process that we're gonna do." On a daily, weekly, monthly basis to do the things that we want to achieve, right? So, for example, I say the things that I put on my list. One was I wanted to be more mindful, right? So my habit was I wanted to just practice mindfulness every morning, right? So I bought the Waking Up app and do that for 10 minutes
shout out Sam
every.
Harris.
Yeah, Sam Harris. There you go. Thanks, Sam. Um, I love it. I'm not perfect every day. I probably skip the weekends. I think it's easy more. I'm more regimented on the
Yeah.
weekdays, so it's like an easier flow for me. But so for example, I had like that. I wanted to schedule date night with Libby once a week. I think we're one
That's when
for
she got up and left the
yeah, she was like,
conversation.
I'm out, I'm out. Maybe I've done one of those. I'm horrible at habits there, right? So like I haven't really put in a good like process or habit for, oh, it's Monday morning, this is when I schedule it, or there's no time and place associated with it, right? Where for the meditation, it's wake up,
Yeah.
I do it, so I know the exact time, the place to do it, right? um then it was also go on a date with each of the kids once a month, right? Like take each the three of them on like a special kind of date or hangout session.
Yes.
And then there was one on friends and family, being better about kind of reaching out and hanging out more with friends and family. And then I had kind of like the standard, like the workout and be healthy and eat healthy, and then of course gain swing speed for golf. That's going to be
Oh, top of
huge.
the list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
Chart it out.
And some things like that, right? So, and then the boys were very much around. They're just all in the golf, right, or their sports or and stuff. So, Judd, for example, he'll do 20 push-ups before he goes to bed. That's his time and place.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to tuck him in, and he was just in the middle of
Hold on,
cranking out.
Dad.
Yeah, he's just cranking out push-ups, right? Maybe it's a junior high thing. Feels like he needs to be all swole. I don't know. Um, but like some things that I was thinking the other day that we haven't really, this came up just yesterday. Something that I think we really value is we like a clean house and just things kind of in order where there's not clutter. And we all sort of agree that it's easier to move throughout the day and the week when it's a
Mhm.
nice, clean, not cluttered house. So the boys we were all cleaning, and I think Carly and Libby were off running an errand. And I said, "Hey, boys, after you guys make lunch, will you clean the kitchen?" And they're like, "Sure." And then I said, "Oh, and then you guys could have screen time." They cleaned all morning, and so they like make mac and cheese, right? Good go to on Sunday, and
I can
then
picture
just throw and then
the cheese powder
yeah,
everywhere on the counter.
exactly, cheese powder everywhere, boxes, the wrappers
Yeah,
everywhere,
nothing
stuff
thrown away.
everywhere, and then they like put their bowls in the sink and they go sit down. I was like, "Whoa, guys, what about clean the kitchen?" "Oh, yeah, you're right, dad. Sorry, sorry." So then they go, like, come back, and then just put their bowls, like, in the dishwasher, and then nothing else.
Still didn't see the
Still,
repercussions.
I was like, "Have you not
Yeah.
seen any of this?"
Yeah.
And so, it was just funny, like, the reminders and all that stuff, and so, as you were talking about this earlier, like, the values that we family, I'm like, "Okay, is that really a family value?" Because maybe they don't share that value, that
Yeah.
Libby and I feel like it's nice to have a clean kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And then they probably don't understand the why of why it's nice to have a clean kitchen, right? And it's like someone's got to do it, or it just sits there for days and weeks and months, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's like, do you really want to live that way, right? So, uh, I don't know. So now I guess I'm kind of thinking of what are better sort of habits that we can ingrain or instill, and maybe sitting down having that conversation of, do you guys
Mhm.
value a clean kitchen, and is this something that we want to do where it's take the extra 30 seconds when you're done to just rinse that and throw in the dishwasher and wipe the counter and you're done, you know?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you already are prioritizing it because you made them do it.
Yeah.
The uh, there's no guarantee of amount of reminders before someone learns something. It just is going to need to be reminded and enforced until they do, right? Like potty training
Yeah.
or doing your homework or putting your clothes in the dirty hamper or what. It's not a guarantee. You do it right way. It's only 10 times and they always put up their mac and cheese in the trash. It could be 100 times or 1,000 times. So what? They're going to learn it if you don't blow it up. Like I can say this pretty confidently without knowing everyone's kids. They are very predictable in that they will learn and absorb the things that are taught over and over and over again. Just like they've learned please and thank you and hi and bye,
Hmm.
every other cultural norm, right? They wash their hands after they go to the bathroom. They learned them all because we taught them all over and over. They didn't learn, you didn't like, know as a kid, like, oh, you poop and then you don't wash your hands. Like you learn those things, right? Put your dishes away, please. Hey, oh, come over here. Look at this counter. What belongs here and what doesn't belong here? You
Yeah.
know? Oh yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, right. Good job. Versus getting mad and feeling justified because you've told them maybe 100 times already. You can get mad. Not that big of a deal if it's like, put your mac and cheese away. I'm so tired of you, blah, blah, blah. But it's easier to say, hey, oh, come here, please. Over and over and over. It's not a forever learning curve. Like they will get it for sure. They're more likely to get it the nicer and chill you are in reminding. Although that feels counterintuitive, we feel like we need to up the ante because we've said it 20 times, 50 times.
Yeah.
They're still doing it. Obviously, it's not working. I need to up my game and get more authoritative. That's what some parents do. All of us do from time to time, right? But the truth is, that's just our emotional reaction to this thing that's not going the way we think it should, even though we have no hard data that would say it's going to take 25 reminders and then they're going to learn it. And if they don't, then you're going to get mad at them because they'll get it the next time. We don't have any of that.
Hmm.
It could be 1,000 times. But if you don't give up and you continue to remind, they're very likely to learn it and do it. It's when we stop or we do it for them, which is the worst.
Right.
Not every time, not like you can't ever put your trash away and it blows things up. But 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, make them do it. Remind them, say, great job, proud of you. And a quick little reminder here, or a little side note some parents don't want to say that, good job, or thank you, because they think the kid is going to get the impression that it's some sort of like, not privilege, exceptional
Yeah,
behavior
that they
versus
went above and
expected behavior.
beyond.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Like, no, you're telling me you don't like your boss to tell you good
Yeah.
job when you do your job? It's just doing your job. They don't have to say good job, but it's nice to hear, right?
Yeah.
Tell your kids, great job putting your stuff away. In your head, you're like, well, no shit, you're going to put your stuff away. And I'm going to tell you to do it. You're not going to leave the house until you put your stuff away. But I don't need to say that. I just say, good job. Thank you. My son's a perfect example. I feel like for 5 years, we've been telling him, will you please put your stuff away? Will you please put your stuff away? When you get up from the counter or the table, put your dishes away. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And he'll come back and put them away, 3 of the 5 things. I'm like, how'd you not see the other two
Right.
things right there? But evidenced by the repeated behavior, I would say his eyes don't see it all, just like your boys in the mac and cheese. I really don't think they see everything. They got a very busy mind,
Yeah.
full of imagination and fun. They're not worried about the same stuff. They can't see it all yet.
Well, full disclosure, the end of that story. So I'm like doing my little stretches. I'm kind of off in the distance, but I can see, and I kind of did exactly what you said. I'm like, hey boys, let's just look at the counter real quick. Do you see anything? Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, Dad. Yep. Okay. We did that about 4 times, right? finally they go sit down again, and I go, "So you guys got it all locked in?" They're like, "Yep, Dad is perfect. It's nicer than when we came there." I
Nice.
walk over, and in the sink is just the big old pot of messy mac and cheese just sitting there,
Yeah.
like not rinsed, not clean, not anything.
Yeah.
Then
Cheese residue.
then I did lose it, and I
Oh,
probably wasn't a proud dad moment, but I was like, "Are you kidding me, boys? What was it?" I was like, "You got like," and then they both yelled at each other. "I thought you were gonna do it. No, I thought you were gonna do it."
yeah.
And so,
And then if they go and do it, it's possible to believe that that's what it takes sometimes.
yeah,
And the truth is, you don't know that because that's the only one you tried. If you just said, "Oh, go over there," let's say they're watching TV, you grab the remote, you turn it off, or you hit pause,
yeah,
right? And you say, "You guys, I'm worried about your vision.
yeah,
We might need to go see the optometrist this week because apparently you don't see the things I see. So how many fingers do I have up? Two, two. Oh, shoot. Okay, you do see. Okay,
yeah,
so come over here. Follow me. Let's look around. Is there something out of place? Right now, notice how like I'm at making fun. It's having fun.
mhm,
That doesn't mean we're watering down the lesson. The
right,
lesson is their show was stopped. They're going to come back and finish their job. I don't need to shame them. I don't need to get mad at them. I might get mad, but that's my deal, not
yeah,
theirs. I want them to learn. The whole point of parenting is to teach over and over and over so they learn healthy skills to be healthy people, right?
yeah,
Getting mad at them teaches you get mad at people that don't do what you want them to do. That's actually a shitty skill for their life,
mhm,
right? Versus just hold people accountable. You don't need to be a jerk.
yeah,
So you'd come over there, you do the funny joke about the optometrist. Oh, good, you can see. Let's come back over here. Oh, the counter. All right, counter looks normal. Okay, check. Over here on this counter. Oh, good. Oh, okay. What over here looks to be out of place, guys? Oh yeah. Well, Tyler, you said you're going to do the pot. And you're like, okay. Well, here's pause. Figure this out, and then go back to doing what you're doing, guys.
yeah.
You might, regardless how many times you have to do that, that will work.
Well, and I think something that just resonated with me was you said it could be countless times that we have to model this and or explain or teach, like you said, right? It's just a
Yeah.
lifelong teaching. So just and being patient, not to always go back to golf, but there's always little golf lessons. But I saw there's a famous golf instructor, and a guy asked him, said, "How many times do I have to do this move, right? To do this?" The guy goes, "I don't know. It could be one. You could get it right away, or
Yeah.
it could be 10,000. And but he
Exactly.
said, but the whole point of this is that you're trying to do this so that first you do it like so that you can do it. Then you do it sort of like in sequence, and then you'll do it fluid,
Yeah.
and then you'll do it without even thinking,
Yeah.
right? And he said that could literally be 10 times, it could be 1,000, it could be 10,000 times, right?
Yeah.
And just knowing that, and that's probably applicable for
It
everything
removes
in
the
life.
urgency.
Yeah, there's just no exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the structure and routine is to teach healthy lifelong habits. This isn't like by next Friday or else.
Yeah.
There's no urgency. We
Yeah.
react because we set an unfair expectation of what we thought it should be by now. I've been telling you this for years. You should have it figured out by now. Says who? Says what? I don't know. Just my opinion that day.
Mhm.
Skip that and just get back to please grab your stuff, hit pause, stop doing that, drop that, please, and clean up here. That's it. And then they didn't clean it all up. They did half of it. Oh, come here. What else needs to be put away? Oh, yeah. And they left a quarter of it because they only did another quarter.
Mhm.
Okay, hold on. Still not there. Okay, before you leave next time, I need you to do a scan. Like we have to train our son how to scan the whole space because apparently he looks out of like a 1-inch telescope. He only sees like that thing. And you're like, but look 3 feet to the left. The box, the wrapper, the scissors, and all the cheese powder is on the counter, bud. I need you to see that. What's the dumb comment? How do you not see that?
Right.
That's not a question. It's a rhetorical statement that's just me being angry. And obviously, I say stuff like that as most parents. It's just not productive. What's productive is help him learn to see more.
Mhm.
All right, hold on. So maybe we need to step back 1 foot. Step back 1 foot and start at that end of the counter and go all the way to the other end of the counter and identify what needs to be put away. that's actually teaching him how to see differently versus just assuming he should be able to see and then get mad that he doesn't. I don't think he sees what I see. Evidenced by how often he doesn't put stuff away. He can't see it,
Yeah.
right? I don't think it's that he doesn't care, because if I ask him, he'll do it. He doesn't argue that it's dumb. Teenagers will argue that it's dumb. Like, who cares where the dish is, Dad? It's not bothering anybody.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's bothering me. You know.
Well,
But
I think there's a fine line between there's some things out there that can be modeled and some that your kids just aren't going to watch you like for example, doing the dishes. My kids will never sit and observe how we do the dishes.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly. I don't
So
know.
they might like we can model, yeah, we keep a clean kitchen. We can model, oh, I work out in the morning. Yeah, I go outside. I want to be mindful. I meditate. They can like you can model that or they can see those things.
Yeah.
But I'm like there, but then there's that next level of actually how to do it, which I guess is probably there has to be an element of teaching, right? There has to be an element of because they're not just gonna on their own be like, "Oh, I watched how you actually did scrub the whole pot, and then
Yeah.
you put soap in it, and then I watched how you dried it, and then you put it away." Like,
No, there's a ton of teaching. Even to model, like you first taught something at some point and then you model it.
Yeah.
Um, but you notice, like, as a parent, what it feels like to be a privileged teacher to humans that are going to live on their own someday, versus the parent who's irritated the kid hasn't learned the thing right and their thing is upsetting my space and upsetting my visual experience with the
Mhm.
counter. That's me reacting to a narrow view versus it's a privilege to train your kids to live a healthy way. Just keep doing that.
Yeah.
And don't put expectations on it that are going to trip me up as the parent, by saying they should learn this after 10 times. Well, you have no data to support that. There's no data at all.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe there is, like the 10,000 times,
Right.
10,000 hours before you really get it without thinking, Maybe. I don't know. They're going to get it if we keep reminding them. I don't know what age it's going to fully click, but I was going to go back to, he now gets, my son does get up and I don't know, 3/4 of the time does take his dishes to the dishwasher without being reminded. Just like 6 months ago, that wasn't occurring. We'd have to remind him every single time because his mental life is very colorful and fun in there. And he'll get up just like singing or talking to himself and not see anything in the space. But we have taught him, before you get up, look around, grab what you need to do. And when he doesn't, we just nicely, respectfully, most of the time, ask him to do it again,
Mhm.
over and over and over and over and over. There's no reason to react. The reaction is, one, we think they're never going to get it, or two, I'm irritated that I have to see it. It shouldn't be this way by now because they should know it by now. But there's shoulds in there that we can't really confirm, right? We can't validate with research or data. You'd say, like the golf instructor just said, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
going to take as long as it's going to take. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing it. You're doing the right thing. You teaching your kids to do these things is the right thing, especially if you're not a jerk. There's no shame. There's no, like, yeah, you could do, might have to do threats, but you don't have to be shaming with the threats. You're going to lose your thing if you don't do this. Okay. But you don't have to, like, hurt them emotionally or yell to be a good teacher. Like, imagine how bad the golf instructor would be. And you go get a lesson and you did the same move that you used to do. And he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I taught you this. Like, why are you doing that again? I don't know. Oh my gosh, are you an idiot? Do you have not
Yeah.
any body control at all? Where's your muscle memory? I don't even want to, like, coach you. You have, like, this is ridiculous. You're like, it's not a good instructor for me. Made me feel really bad.
Yeah.
Versus, man, I'm going to work so much harder because, like, golf instructors don't do that.
Right.
Good coaches don't do that. They say, obviously, we need to do this again or take a different approach. So the structure, the younger your kids, the more important that that you're consistent, because you're building those habits, please and thank yous, clean up after your space, wash your hands, all those things, right? Uh, their reluctance or reaction to doing those things um, might wane when they're older in the teenage years because they got more emotional distraction in their life, which is hard to understand. But they have a lot more noise. They have a lot more on their dashboard during those teenage years. That's way more important than the dishes or the clothes on the floor.
Yeah.
But it's good for them to continue to still have habits, even though they have a louder inner space or a louder emotional life. It's obviously good to have a cleaner room and a clean body and a clean house. It's just
Mhm.
taking care of your stuff, right? Teaching them how to take care of things and being stewards of the things that we have is a great parenting thing that I think for most families should be a top priority. Maybe not number one, but high up there. Just don't be a jerk in teaching it. Just keep doing it over and over and over.
Mhm.
So I think modeling it is a big deal, but you're right. Sometimes you really have to say, let me teach you and I'll keep teaching you until it makes sense to you. Because some things aren't just absorbed by seeing it. They might not get it or care about it. And sometimes that doesn't matter. Like, the why, they're only going to be so interested.
Mhm.
And they're meaning they have a limit of how interested they can be in some of these things. And just like, I don't know. I mean, here's the why, but it doesn't really matter. I need you to do it. And do it enough until you get older and mature enough, you'll get it. Until then, just do it. So the why isn't crucial, but it's good to explain. If a kid asks you, why can't I do that? Don't say because I said so. That
Right.
is that is dumb. Give them the reason why it matters. I don't like looking at that. I don't want you out that late because of this, this, or this. Don't say because I said so. It doesn't gain respect and it's unintelligent and it discourages them from asking more intelligent questions in the future because they know you're going to just pull the parent card and say because I said so.
Right.
If you can't explain it, I'd actually challenge you. Maybe you can't enforce it. Now that doesn't work for all situations, but it puts the onus on the parent of like explain it in a way they can get it. They don't have to like it, but help them get it and then enforce it over time.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, one quick thing I wanted to
Yeah.
say about the structure is the structure serves the family and the family relationships. It's not the versus the other way around. Like the family doesn't serve the structure serves the family. And more importantly, the structure represents the values. So don't worship the structure. Now, there's obviously an element of discipline for all structure to work. If there's no discipline and respect for it, it's pointless.
Mhm.
But it's not about the structure, it's about what it builds in us or as a family. There are times though where a top value is more important than the structure. Like, oh, so and so's had a really tough day and they were supposed to clean this thing at 5 o'clock, or we were supposed to go out of so and so's house, but they're up in their room crying. We value caring for one another more than we do social obligations or more than we do chores,
Mhm.
depending on what's going on, right?
I was literally just gonna ask about that because I was, as we've been talking about this, I feel like it sounds so jaded and it's like, oh, you gotta have a clean kitchen and it's all about like, having these regimented things. Libby, my wife, brought up the other day was just brought up like the need for us just to always be nice, right, to
Yeah.
each other, right? And just thinking that value to me is way more important than a clean kitchen, right?
Yeah.
So then it's how do you speak to each other? How do you ask for things? And so when I finally lose it because I've asked 8 times and there's still a messy pot, I can still be nice,
Yeah.
which to me is like a bigger value than the kitchen, right?
Exactly.
And so yeah,
It's
so
so easy for us to forget that as a value though,
mhm.
right? That's we can be tricked into thinking that this thing that's not happening and us addressing that is the highest value, but it could be in conflict with a value of being kind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to imagine a family that wouldn't say they value kindness.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to hang out with them at all. Um, I I know I'm not always kind. I know most parents aren't always kind, but most parents and most humans would say they value that. And in some cases, maybe the highest priority. Then I would say, then it's simple. You follow your value system. You're gonna have a hard time getting out of line.
Mhm.
Be kind. Okay. Well, then whatever other value we're addressing here, if I have to be kind, it's probably going to go well. At very least, I know I won't be upset because I'm going to be focused on being kind. It's crazy how much more you can get done in the world with being kind than being authoritative or scary or just regimented. Like you can be regimented in with, but it's the energy is the kindness.
Yeah.
The rigidity of the structure doesn't have to be angry and mean. You can have multiple values at the same time. Like I'm going to be super nice and really consistent. Like they are going to get this thing done no matter what happens. But I'm going to be nice the whole time. Now I'm protecting the relationship. I'm modeling the desired behavior for them in life and still holding them accountable to the thing. But oftentimes we forget that kindness is a value and that it doesn't make sense to throw that one in the trash to prioritize value number 2 or number 3.
Hmm.
Like, well, but if it's number 1, if it's a higher value, you never put it in the trash.
Yeah.
Well, they're not getting it. Oh, so you're saying being a jerk now is okay because they're not getting it. Like I thought kindness was a top value. Yeah, but this needs to change. It's not an intelligent defense. It can be proven wrong within like 30 seconds if we had to talk
Hmm.
about it. Uh, and I would show them like remember that nanny show? Uh, it was like the reality TV show where they had like the British nanny in there, and she would like come into the house and like show the parents how to like
Oh,
take
yeah,
control.
yeah. No.
She seemed like she was kind of bitchy,
Hmm.
but point being, consistency and kindness will work.
Yeah.
I just don't know how long it's going to take. Nor does the parent.
Yeah.
But that will work better for everybody versus just getting mad and blowing up to enforce the thing. It still might get done. It might get done faster. It might get done even done better. It's just not a good thing to model and will not be what's best over time. So highlighting, dial in your family values and don't be confused and let number 3s and 4s, you know, trump number 1s and 2s.
Hmm.
Really be sure that you're following your value system and that your structure serves your family, not you worshiping or serving the structure. You want to
Right.
make it work for your family and have that flexibility to discern, you know what? So and so sick. I'm not going to make them do this thing right now. Could they? Yeah, but I can tomorrow we can do that. As long as there's follow through and some consistency, it's going to be fine. It's just when people give up on the consistency because they feel like they should know it by now.
Yeah.
Well, I always kind of forget more of the how tos. Um, and you alluded to it with like the boys in the kitchen, but the how of how to hold your kids accountable when you are upset and they're not doing this thing you feel like they should do is I'll say this: invite them into the solution versus demand or command or threaten. Hey, would you please come do this? I asked them a question, which Bree gets hung up on because they could say no. I'm not going to let them say no.
Right.
By the way, it's a question because it's more likely to get them to engage versus you have to or else. I just don't want to parent that way. Invite them into it. Would you please join me? Would you do this, please? Because if you don't, I'm going to have to up the ante.
Hmm.
I'm not going to give in to their answer, but I'm going to use the nicest language possible. Hey, it looks like you guys are having fun playing that video game or playing this outside. I love that. Um, but you didn't finish the thing I wanted you to do. So tell me, you could give them a question. You could give them the opportunity. Do you want to do it right this second and get back to it? Or in an hour, do that plus this other thing because it's going to be time to do that other thing too. The key is I hold them accountable to whatever they say yes to. And then I'm teaching and they're learning. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be right this second, drop everything you're doing, do what I want you to do. It's like an unnecessary power play. Like, okay, you could, but as long as they do it, it doesn't always matter. Sometimes it matters, but invite them into the solution by asking or like do it with them. That's the okay. As long as they're taking some responsibility, don't get hung up on who's doing what. Like I did 15% of it and you know, who cares? As long as they're seeing what it's like to take responsibility for their room or their home or their space, don't overthink it. It's better for them to be doing the thing. And actually, now you could actually have a conversation about something else in life. Like, you know what? Your room's an absolute mess. It's disgusting to me. I know it's probably overwhelming for you to go start, but how about if I help you for a little bit? Okay. I'm going to manipulate that opportunity to have a talk about something else in life and get them to clean their room.
Mhm.
So what did I clean their room with them for a little bit?
Yeah.
Now, full disclosure, I don't do that.
Full disclosure.
I'm not cleaning
Right.
anyone's room, but I'm not opposed to it at all if I needed to do that.
But that invitation thing, I think is huge, and I think we had talked about that a lot about always starting with questions, right, and
Yeah.
asking in that invite. I literally tried that this weekend. We had something fun we want to do later in the day, and we were kind of crunched for time. And I said, "Hey, kids, would you three kids?" They were all on screens. It was Saturday morning, so they got up on screens and they're having their screen time. And I said, "Hey, I can make breakfast and do this, but we might be late and miss this thing. Or I have this work stuff I have to do over here. If you guys want to make breakfast, then there's a good chance we could do it." And the kids were like, "Yeah, we'll make breakfast for the whole family, Dad. Like we got this, you know."
Yeah.
And I was like, where I think
Awesome.
if I just came in and was like, "Shut off screens, go," it just would have been a whole
Yeah.
different ordeal.
It's not surprising if we put ourselves in their shoes in the
Yeah.
city, right? And if your boss, coworker came to you and said, "Hey, I know you're working on this thing, which I appreciate, um, but this is really pressing. Would you be willing to do this first?"
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like 100% of the people would rather that than someone come in and saying, "What are you doing that for? I need you to do this. Do this first." We might do it, but we're like, what a jerk. Like, fine, but you could have asked nicely.
Hmm.
So it's not crazy. We're not watering down the principle or the value of follow through. We're making it more digestible, and we're instilling more appropriate habits and relational skills. We're kind of two birds with one stone. Do the thing and be nice while you're doing it. Your life's going to be easier.
Yeah.
No shit. But the parent's mind and brain malfunctions because we're just upset and we fail to calculate the other values that are at stake while we're talking about that one. We over prioritize sometimes. Like, you didn't do your homework. What? Are you going to like flunk out of school? Or stop, Cal. Like, you're teaching them to like blow up. That's not good.
Hmm.
Figure out what their plan is. Well, they're not talking. You've got to unlock the right door then. Try a different key. Like, if you care about them, put the time and put the work in. Getting mad is just a lazy parent approach.
Yeah.
And it might not always blow up or cause catastrophe, but it could. And more importantly, it's just lazy and you're settling well below the pretty good parent mark. That's like below average parent. You just got mad and made him do it. Okay, sure. Not an F, but way lower than you modeled reasonable communication. I care about you and I care about you and our place. So that's why I'm going to make you do this thing.
Hmm.
You get all of that with a kinder delivery. So if you can't do structure, if you're prioritizing structure over energy, you're failing, I think, at a bigger level.
Yeah.
The structure is good for habit building and perspective and work ethic. But how you model it and do that with them is still probably more important because you want a relationship with them long term, probably more than you do their ability to clean their room.
Well, I would say my big takeaway from this is that I would like to, like, I want to go chat with Libby right after this and say, what do we, kind of from a structure standpoint, do we want to put in as our number one, number two? And is that just simply always be kind, treat people how we want to be treated? Because it just, it's easy to lose sight of those when you get fired up and get more on the,
Yeah.
just the checking things off the
Their
list and
grades
grades and
or how
did you put in the time to do this? Did you clean your room? Yeah.
they're important things.
Right.
But it's easy to say it's more important to be nice and have good
Mhm.
relationships and be grateful. And you don't, it's not one or the other. They can
Right.
all happen at the same time. You just have to be a more mindful an aware parent. You can't be the caveman parent who just reacts to stuff and gets mad and throws a fit. Like, well, they need to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're just teaching bad habits that it's not going to set them up to be healthy and successful when they're older.
Yeah.
So do you feel like did we cover like enough of the how to? Does
I
that?
think so, yeah. So like to recap, right? Looking at how to create positive and healthy routines, right? Basically first you were talking about diving into the values and aligning on the values, right?
Yeah. Work ethic, academics, exercise, diet, sleep, social life, family quality time, sleep. There's no right or wrong list for each family, but it should reflect what you guys care most about and what you want your kids to be about.
And then I think May talked about maybe the really important thing is that this should serve your family, and basically not you trying to bow down to the structure itself and be intimidated by the
Yeah.
structure, but it should help serve your family. And then I think just probably goes without saying, probably something you want to circle back on a quarterly basis or regular basis, right?
Yeah.
Just check in and be like, are these still our values? Is this still the things that we want to do? Do we still prioritize sleep? Do we even prioritize, being mindful, working out, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Things
Those
change
can change, right?
quickly within a 3 months period. One sports season has stopped or the weather's changed and sun comes up, the sun goes down, everything changes. Obviously sun comes up and goes down, but different
Mhm.
times.
Yeah.
They change enough to where it's wise to say, what's this next quarter look like? What are the top priorities for us and what are our top values? It's hard to get it too far off if you're reviewing it often and prioritizing it and tweaking it.
Yeah. Thanks, Joshua. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gave
Dan.
me some food for thought, and I think I'm again gonna be less manic about the check boxes and that, and I dive back more into the value side of things
Yeah.
because it's
Kind
easy to lose
kind
sight of
dad.
it. Yeah, the pretty kind dad,
Yeah.
the pretty kind parent.
Yeah, there's room to be the not kind occasionally, as long as it's most of the time when you're pretty kind.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, again, thank you, pretty good parents out there. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you being here. That means that you also want to be a pretty good parent. So, again, if you find any of this helpful, we would love a like. We would love a subscribe. And if you feel this is worth sharing, please share. And let's help make other pretty good parents.
Let's do it.
Awesome. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Dan.
Pretty good parent.
Pretty good parent.
All right. Adios.